afternoon. Welcome to Across the Fence. I'm your host, Keith Silva. In collaboration with the Larner College of Medicine Center on Aging and Across the Fence, we are talking today about family caregivers. These people are often on the front line between the patient and the doctors. Caregivers need to be advocates as well as compassionate attendants during times of stress and anxiety that would overwhelm even the most resilient and strongest person. Left unsaid, the kind of caregiving we're talking about today is often long-term, intense, and mentally challenging. To discuss this topic, I'm joined by Maija Reblin. Dr. Reblin's research focuses on understanding the social context of family caregivers to understand who they are, and ultimately develop resources to help them. Thank you for talking with us today, Dr. Reblin.
Thank you for having me.
Who are caregivers? Let's start at the start.
That's a great question. I think a lot of times people think about, somebody sitting by the bedside and doing all these things, but I think it can be a lot bigger than that. Oftentimes, the way that I define a caregiver is somebody who provides any kind of support or help to somebody who's going through some kind of health challenge. So usually these are family members, but it can also be friends and neighbors and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And in my introduction, we were talking before we started, there is no competition here there's no sides here. We're all on the same team when it comes to caregivers, the patient, and the doctors.
Yeah, I think in the best case scenario, everybody is on the same team, everybody's working together. I think sometimes, people get messy, and it can be a different thing where, patients have one idea of what's going to happen and their family or caregivers have another idea, and they're trying to, make that work within the doctors that they have. And so that can get really complicated, but ultimately we want to have everybody on the same page.
That's probably a good thing in medicine. Are family caregivers essential to healthcare? It's something you rely on?
Yes, I think so much of our healthcare system now is outpatient, and I think that can be really good for patients because everybody wants to have care at home. Nobody wants to sit in a hospital. But in order to make that happen, sometimes we need to rely on family caregivers to be doing a lot of the things that used to happen in the hospital. So family caregivers are really doing a lot in our healthcare system.
Are we asking a lot of people, of caregivers in general, to do? They're not medical professionals.
Yes, I think we are asking a lot of folks, but I think in a lot of cases they want to be doing that. I think, a lot of the time you're providing care for somebody that you care about, and you want to be at home with them, and you want to be able to help them. And I think a lot of caregivers find strength in that and say, look at what I was able to do, and I'm providing this important service for folks. But it is a lot, and we could be doing more to support these folks.
And that's what your research is all about as a social psychologist. We're talking about family caregivers. What if family isn't available?
Yeah, I think oftentimes family is available, and that's great. Sometimes people choose not to have their family as their caregivers, or the family just isn't available. A lot of people live far away from their family. So a lot of times, friends or neighbors step in. Chosen family is certainly something that happens. So a lot of times there are people available. Sometimes there just isn't somebody, and often what you see is that patients want to be really independent, and so they keep that together. But usually you can find somebody who does want to help.
So you're looking more for a volunteer. When we talk about family caregivers, we're talking about people volunteering, even the neighbor next door, the friend. Are there professional caregivers if there's a situation where, there isn't anybody and you've got to pay for someone to do it?
Yeah, there are services out there that are available. So, ideally you have friends and family who can kind of step in, but if not, there are certainly services, but you do have to pay for those.
Right. What are the challenges in identifying a caregiver? How do you know, as a doctor, this person is a caregiver?
Oftentimes you don't know. So, when people come to the appointments, usually they'll have somebody with them, and it's a pretty good guess that they are a caregiver, but sometimes it's just the person who's dropping them off. You don't really know. And you don't know the whole cast of characters who are at home, or doing all the things like managing the household, or things like that are really caregiving roles. And so it's a really big challenge to know who's out there helping. And so one thing, there has been recent legislation passed nationally, not in Vermont, surprisingly, to identify who caregivers are in the medical record because they're just not there. And so we don't know who they are, and that makes it really hard to make sure that they're getting all the support that they need.
Because if the doctor, if you're at an appointment and the doctor is talking with the patient, it's your assumption that the person sitting to their left or right is the caregiver, but you don't know that, and it's helpful for the doctor to know, am I talking to the guy or am I talking to the guy who talks to the guy?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people go to their appointments by themselves, and
Right.
so then it's sort of like you're playing this telephone game of like, well, what did the doctor say? I don't know, I just went and got these pills, and like, okay, like what are you supposed to do with that?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion, certainly at UVM-MC, about health equity nowadays. How do income, advocacy, language, and culture intersect with caregiving and the whole process?
Yeah, I think this is a really important point because oftentimes caregivers are folks who have traditionally been minoritized. You think caregiving is traditionally, a woman's responsibility, and it's also something that more low-income folks take on because if you're a big CEO, you're getting this paycheck, you can't take time off to provide care, things like that. Often LGBTQ folks are more likely to be caregivers, and I think it's sort of adding responsibility to these folks who are already dealing with a lot of things, and so we want to make sure that we provide services and resources for folks who already are having a hard time, and then they have this caregiving role on top of that.
It may be marginalized to begin with in some ways.
Yeah.
So we're talking about an awful lot of stressful, heavy stuff here, serious medical diagnoses, long-term, obvious for a lot of these sorts of things. What sort of support services do these caregivers need?
A lot of different things.
I bet.
What we hear a lot is, we want help managing care for the patient, and so give me tools to help with medication management. These folks are on like 6 different things, like what pills do I give when, things like that. They need financial help, help figuring out, can I get time off work? How does that work? How do I manage insurance? But then I think they also need sort of these emotional support. So it's really stressful. Like where's the time to sort of decompress and vent a little bit and things like that. And so there are a lot of different kinds of resources that folks need, and there are a lot of different resources out there, but it's really hard to kind of find those things, especially when you're already stressed out.
Right.
And there's no sort of systematic program of like, when you get pregnant, it's like, okay, here are all the parenting classes. But we don't have sort of the same kind of like, okay, you're a caregiver now, like here's what you need to do.
Right.
And all these things are sort of lined up for you.
Yeah, you made an important point too that, when we're talking about caregivers and we're talking about family members, that's not a job that you apply for. It's kind of one that you now take and you're like, okay, what kind of benefits does this come with? What's my PTO package?
Yeah, there isn't one.
There isn't one. Yeah, there isn't one. In your research and the things that you've done, what sort of support services have you learned are the most important for caregivers?
I think it really depends on the situation. So people kind of come into this scenario with a lot of different things already. And so it really kind of depends what the mix looks like. And that's what makes it really challenging, is because there's no one size fits all where everyone just needs this. Right. So some people just really need to better understand like what's happening here and have somebody walk through like, here's what we can expect and here's what you need to do. Some people already have those kinds of skills, and so what they need is the resources of like, I need money to pay for XYZ thing, I need someone to show up and clean my house for me while I do this other thing. I think that's the other thing, is a lot of people have lives already, and so some of it is, I need childcare, I need elder care if I'm caring for my sibling or whatever. It really can vary what people need the most.
Right. So yeah, that gets into the question about barriers. It all depends. If you're a mom with a family and you're taking care of a sick parent, you may need childcare. That may be a barrier to taking care of someone. If you're unemployed, there needs to be some sort of, possibly compensation worked out. So it is a case-by-case basis. What sort of recent developments at UVM-MC for family caregivers have you seen lately in terms of resources?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. I know that the UVM Caregiver Center has developed a few different tools and groups for dementia caregivers specifically. So you can join a group, and I think that's really beneficial for a lot of people to kind of know you're not alone, and also get some different resources that way. Also, at the UVM Cancer Center, we have developed a website where we've aggregated a bunch of different helpful resources, not just for cancer caregivers, but anybody. There's a website that you can go onto and see different kinds of resources that are available within the community. And so I would encourage folks to check that out.
In those things and resources you're talking about, a lot of that is mental health, because what we're talking about here is dealing with stress and dealing with your own mental health as you care for this person and perhaps your relationship to them or whatever. So are a lot of these resources and things that you're looking for people, are they based in mental health and therapy?
Some of them, but not all of them. Okay. I think certainly that's an important piece, because I think so many times it's like, well, I need to just care for this person and I'll take care of myself later.
Sure.
But you can't pour from an empty cup, and you kind of have to, keep yourself topped up a little bit. But some of the resources are sort of those in-home care or different financial programs and things like that.
So we've got, we're sort of leaving the best for last here. I should have put this up earlier in our script. You are developing a Vermont Caregiver Survey. There's a website where folks can go to. Our director, Chris, will put that, there it is, right on the screen there, the Vermont Caregiver Survey. Tell us about the survey, Maija.
Yeah, so we developed the survey because, as I mentioned, it's really hard to know who caregivers are. And so we want to know who caregivers in Vermont and our surrounding areas are, to better understand, what their needs might be. And so in the survey, we ask some basic demographic questions just to get a sense of who people are. And then we also ask what their needs are. And so this is a place for folks to make suggestions for different kinds of resources that you might like to see, and help us better understand kind of what gets in the way of accessing these different kinds of things. We hope to use this information so that we can advocate to develop different kinds of resources that that can be available within the health network.
And this is part of your research. This is what you do. This is your job.
Yeah, this is my job. It's a fun one.
This is your job. Well, thank you very much. We'll put that survey information up again to find out. And I want to thank everyone here at WCX who make this program possible. And if you'd like to watch Across the Fence anytime, day or night, possibly with a caregiver, you can watch our conversation with Dr. Reblin and visit our social media channels on Facebook and YouTube by searching Across the Fence. Take care.